2017 budget hearing to order. The village administrator, Scott Harrington, will be taking care of that portion, and we will proceed. Mr. Harrington, if you want to come up here, please. Sure.
I'll just give kind of a quick summary of this year's budget. First of all, I just want to say this was really a great team effort with the board and with the staff in putting this together, and I think it came together well. Really want to thank Diane in particular for keeping us on track and making changes and making changes again and making changes again. So thank you. In a summary, I would call the budget flat. Our expenses are up less than 0.5%, our taxes are up less than 0.5%, and all of our revenue is up less than 0.5%. So pretty much a pretty even keel from last year to this year. There's 17 to 18. We're within our allowable levy limit, just slightly below that. We also qualify for the state's expenditure restraint program, so that's more of a kind of a voluntary thing where if you kind of maintain an even keel like we are from one budget to another, they reward you with additional revenue sharing, which this year is $48,000. And our mill rate is pretty much the same. So our tax rate was $12.42 and will continue to be. So I did some quick math on a $200,000 house. The village portion of the property taxes would be about $2,500, a little bit less than that. And the total tax rate, when you add in the county and the school, the community college, it's about $6,000 total. So the village portion of the entire property tax bill is about 41%. And again, that's pretty consistent with where it was last year. One difference to note this year is that the state has removed their property tax. It wasn't very significant, but certainly every little bit helps. And so the percentage of taxes for each of the other jurisdictions went up slightly because the state no longer is going to levy property tax. As noticed in the budget publication, most departments will actually see a slight decrease, and I'll just kind of cover a couple of notable changes from 2017 to 2018. First of all, in the administrative portion of the budget, which is about 33% of the entire budget, and that's mainly because all of the personnel benefits get put in there, our IT systems, so all the kind of general expenses kind of get put in there, plus salaries. Really not a whole lot of change there. We are going to add it into the budget, a little bit of money to buy some tablets for the board so we can go to a paperless agenda system. But overall, that budget's going to see a slight decrease. Public safety, which is about 20% of our budget for police and fire, is down about 2.6%. So again, no real significant changes there. Public works, which is about 41% of our budget, is the one that's up a little bit, and a couple of things really come from that. One is that some projects were kind of deferred from this year to next year because of some staff turnover. Also, we're expecting to maybe retain some outside engineering services where we previously had those in-house. Dell really wants to kind of step up some of our street improvement programs with some additional chip seal and road replacements. The primary project this year is 3rd Street from Levine to Latender. We're also buying a new truck, and then contributing a fair amount of money to our kind of future capital improvement projects. So as I'll talk in a minute, the village has very little debt, and the reason it's able to do that is that it continually puts money into effectively our savings account so that when we have needs, we have money on hand rather than have to borrow it. And likewise, on tonight's agenda is a budget amendment for this year to take funds and also put them into effectively our kind of street savings account. The only other really notable thing is what we call our culture and recreation budget is about 3% It's down a little bit because the splash pad, we weren't really sure how to budget that. Last year had over $20,000 of intended or projected expenses, but after reaching out to some other communities and what their experiences have been, and the fact that we're not going to, if we get it built, it'll be sometime this summer, won't operate for a whole year, so we've lowered that amount. As I mentioned a minute ago, Village has essentially no debt, and after next year won't have any in the general fund. We have $16,000 left from a street sweeper that we bought several years ago. That will be paid off this year, and the general fund will have no debt associated with it. There's still an outstanding note for the wastewater fund of about $1,400,000, and that will continue to be worked off. Also on the agenda tonight is a resolution to increase the wastewater fees. Our wastewater sewer system and our water system are really set up as separate funds where the charges for them are supposed to pay for their related expenses. And that has not been happening with our sewer fund, and our auditor has been encouraging us to increase the fees so that we can do that rather than have the general government effectively loan the money to that fund to make it whole. So that's also on the agenda tonight. So that's kind of my quick summary. Certainly happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Any board members, questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Harrington.
You're welcome.
Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn the 2017 budget hearing. Trustee Mitchell?
Second.
Trustee Grundon, second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. We stand adjourned. There will be a brief 2-minute recess until we get to board meeting. Okay, we will call the December 4th board meeting of the Port Edwards Village Board to order. And I would ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Okay. Trustee Bingham.
Present.
Trustee Duncan. Trustee Grundon. Present. Trustee Martinson. Present. Trustee Mitchell. Present. And Trustee Saylor.
Here. Okay, if you'd all stand, please, and address the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And a brief moment of silence for all our honored war dead that gave the ultimate sacrifice so we could meet in freedom this evening. Thank you very much. Please be seated. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the previous board meeting.
So moved.
Trustee Mitchell, motion. Second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Grundon. Any discussion? Hearing no request to speak, all those in favor of approval signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No motion carried. Public comments on agenda items. We have Assistant Chief Radke. What did you want to
here too, on the CIT training, Katie is also here. I listed
would you please go to the roster?
Sure.
Please? That way everybody in the cable land gets to see what you look like.
Okay. I'm here to actually support Katie. She's from Wood County Crisis. There's a training that's coming up. I believe that it's no cost except the cost of the hourly employee. I guess I was here just to support her on any questions that maybe the board may have of the training. I actually went through the training. Officer Lamb also went through the training from our department. And all but 8 deputies from the Wood County Sheriff's Department have gone through the five, excuse me, I have to be corrected. 5 deputies, and I believe that they were scheduled. It was a very information that was brought in. I would actually recommend it for any law enforcement officer, just in the days and age of mental illnesses and things that we deal with on the job. And I think people can see that throughout the country. There's more drug use and mental illness that's associated with alcoholism and other things. So that's all I wanted to do was support. If the village board had any questions of what I did in the training and how it affected me and helped me in my job and going on in the career, I'd be happy to answer those questions.
When is it?
I believe that the next training that's coming up is here in December.
December 11th, 15th.
Katie, maybe you can give me the dates, the 11th through the 15th, correct?
So how long is the training?
It's a week long. I actually went to Marshfield, drove back and forth, and the first few days was just on different things that are available to officers throughout the county, different services that are available. Believe it or not, there's a lot of services that I wasn't aware of that are actually available to people in our community throughout Wood County. And as the training, it was kind of dry the first few days, I'll admit, but as the training went on, the real life scenarios that we had to deal with, we had 2 officer calls, and there were different scenario bases that you had to go into. Very, very helpful. I think you know that. So
I let it get away from you. We're not allowed to discuss a motion in this part of the agenda.
Okay.
So, but you are allowed to speak, of course, with the chair's permission during that part of it.
okay, so I'm just here to support her. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Katie?
Do you want me to go into my spiel, or am I going to have to wait for something?
When you know, you will have 3 minutes, but then we won't ask you any questions till that comes up on the agenda, or you can wait until that.
Whatever's preferable. Doesn't matter.
Call a point of order. Point of order. Why are we talking about this?
You can't call for a point of order.
Well-
You can make one. And what rule has been broken?
The rule is we already ruled on this particular item.
That's not a Robert's Rules of Order, so we'll have
Well,
to wait.
I'm upset
Yeah.
that this is brought before this board at a particular time.
Trustee Bingham, you'll have to wait till that comes up, please. Okay, you will be recognized during that portion of the agenda, okay? President's report, I have nothing, so we'll get right into the president or the committee report. Streets, Infrastructure, Recreation, and Cemetery Committee.
I would like to defer until after the other committee reports.
Without objection? Okay, we will put you down after the Airport Commission, okay?
What the hell's going on?
Planning, Property, and Information Technology.
Planning, Property, and Insurance and Technology met on November 28th, and as a result, we had many reviews. We had a presentation by Cyber One regarding some grant state funding and loan that they are looking at. We had presentation from CAP Services during that Cyber One. And we also had a short meeting regarding the review and recommendation of ordinances regulating short-term property rentals. At this time, there were no motions, so I would like to make a motion to approve the minutes, please.
Motion by Chairman Martinson to approve the minutes of the PID Committee. Is there a second? Second by Trustee Saylor. Any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Okay, Public Safety.
Okay,
Chairman Mitchell.
we have no meeting for the month of, well, I shouldn't say we have no meeting. We are going to have a meeting, but it will happen tomorrow evening, so we do not have minutes that need to be approved. However, we do have a motion, and that is to approve Officer Merkis's attendance at 5-day CIT training, which is in December.
Okay, do I have a second to the motion to send Officer Merkis to the CIT training in December, or, okay, in December. Is there a second to that motion?
Oh, sorry.
Second by trustee Saylor. I am going to take chair privilege, and I'm setting the discussion on this at 15 minutes, no longer, okay? So,
This is a backdoor effort by our chief. I consider it insubordination to the board, and I want that written into the minutes, because we discussed this in committee. We said we did not approve it, so this is another attempt by you to do an end run. And it's nothing against you, young lady, nothing against the training, but it's an end run by the chief. I consider it insubordination, and I'm going to do everything I can to put a letter in your file in regard to that. I think you're wrong, wrong, wrong.
President Zerflin.
Chairman Martins.
The Public Safety Committee did recommend this training for Andrew Marcus, for Officer Marcus. Right, it came, we recommended it for both.
It came to the Human Resources Committee, and we said no.
And it was a tie. Well, it was a tie, and then voted no. Correct?
Correct.
Correct. We feel very strongly about this, so it is coming back to the board because we feel that the board should have opportunity to express their full opinion.
So there's no value to committee votes. If it gets defeated at committee, we can bring it back to the board and do an end run. So the committee structure is virtually worthless for making decisions, is what you're saying. What I heard anyway.
If I may...
You're saying that Public Safety's committee is not worthwhile?
No, I'm saying all committees are not worthwhile, because if I make a decision in streets and it fails, somebody else can bring it up and go to the board. So it defeats the purpose of a committee.
It isn't somebody else that's bringing it up, it is Public Safety.
Human Resources defeated it.
If I may intervene, we didn't have a motion come out of Human Resources. Chairman Mitchell made a motion, I seconded it, and...
It died.
Yeah, because it was 2-2 vote, so it died. We never had a motion come out. Katie, I'd like to hear what you have to say. If there's no objection, I'd like to go off table.
So I'm Katie Sitz. I'm the Legal Services Crisis Supervisor. I'm also a police officer in the town of Rome. I'm a fire department lieutenant for the town of Rome. And I'm a critical care paramedic for Nakusa Ambulance. So I have a lot of experience in public safety. And one of the things that I do is coordinate our CIT training. I started my law enforcement career about 14 years ago. And I can tell you that when I started in law enforcement as a new officer, I didn't know what I was doing when it came to mental health. I can think back now and look at a number of calls that I handled very inappropriately, just because I didn't have the training, the understanding, or the knowledge about how to appropriately handle those calls and work with those individuals. And there were many times that the outcomes that I probably had on cases didn't have to end up the way they ended up. That was with people in hospitals, people in jails, fighting with individuals, myself, other officers, a number of people getting injured during those altercations, different things like that. And when I was in Appleton, I was introduced to the CIT program. John Walschlager is a large advocate of that program. He actually does a lot of the training for the state of Wisconsin now. And I, in the past year, have gone to the International Instructors course and have become a CIT recognized instructor for that program. So we brought that program here to Wood County. In December, we will be running our third class of that. Prior to that, in order to get this training, you had to go to Milwaukee, Appleton, Madison, other larger communities that were able to put on the training. It is a 40-hour training. We offer the training free. We provide meals during that training, so there is no cost other than the officer's hours in attendance that the department would support. During that training, just to give you kind of an overview of what we actually all covered, the first day we do a 4-hour block on actual mental health diagnoses, recognizing symptoms, becoming aware of what mental health illnesses look like, medications that might go along, different things that would help an officer recognize a person who may be in crisis due to their mental health and what that would look like. In the afternoon, we actually bring in consumers who have had contacts with law enforcement or who have been in the community and had to interact with different services and how that played out in their lives. So that officers really get to hear from community members and people who are struggling with mental illness and surviving, having mental illness on a day-to-day basis, and how that looks, what their experiences were, whether they were positive or negative. We then have, over the next 3 days, and number of different speakers that come in. We have a speaker that talks about dementia specifically and how to work with individuals who have dementia. We have a growing population, and here in Port Edwards you actually have Edgewater Haven, which is a Wood County Human Services program now, and they have our memory care unit, and it is the place that we do our emergency protective placements to through Wood County Human Services, and Port Edwards Police Department is their first response to that. We're also looking at moving our traumatic brain injury unit from Norwood down here as well. And so with that, that is something that law enforcement is going to be encountering on a more regular basis. And so the more training they have to work with these individuals, the better. Additionally, we bring in a speaker to talk about veterans and post-traumatic stress disorder and how best to work with veterans and how to work with individuals who may be having flashbacks or having different issues related to transitioning back to the community after being deployed or having served our country. Additionally, we bring in a panel of speakers to talk about, like Lon mentioned, the resources that are actually in our communities. I can tell you the number of times that officers come in and after the training go, I didn't know this existed. I didn't know we could call this number. I didn't know how to call this number. I didn't know we could get them services X, Y, and Z, whether it be CAP services, economic support, energy assistance, our shelters, any of those different programs that we offer. We also do site visits to a number of the sites here in Wood County so that officers actually become familiar with those places. So ODC, which is a job opportunity program for individuals with developmental disabilities. They actually get to go see that program and meet some of the clients that are there. They go to Northwest Connections and they get to go to Positive Alternatives, which are a day treatment program and a juvenile residential facility where we house some of our juveniles that are having struggles, and also those that are in crisis, where we may place them there for a short respite stay to receive services. On top of that, they get to go through a simulation where they learn what it's like to have hear auditory voices. So during that time, they're made to do things that they would normally do as an officer. So running a license plate number while hearing voices and then being able to give that information back to somebody else. So they truly understand what it's like to hear somebody having command hallucinations, yelling, stop, don't do that, don't go there. And then having them say, stop, police, put your hands up, and understanding that they may not understand what you're saying to them at that given moment because of those hallucinations. They get to experience that for themselves and have a little bit more empathy based upon that experience. We put them through QPR training, which is a training on how to ask an individual, not only in their professional life, but in their personal life. If somebody's feeling like they may be suicidal, wanting to harm themselves or someone else, how to connect them to services in the community. They also get an opportunity to sit down with me, all the officers from Wood County specifically, and talk about our crisis program. How do we work? How do we respond? How to best work with us? And I can tell you in the 3 trainings that we've done and the fact that we've gotten 25 officers through from Wood County, we've also got all of Grand Rapids Police Department, including their chief trained, and this time they are sending 2 of their part-time officers. Nakusa, I believe, has 4 of their officers through already. Pittsville is sending 1 of their part-time officers at this time. Marshfield has sent a number of their officers. Wisconsin Rapids has stated that they intend to send every one of their officers through. And so I've also got almost all of Rome Police Department trained in this. We're also partnering with Portage County and NAMI, so they have almost all of Portage County Sheriff's Department is through it. UW Stevens Point is sending some of their non-sworn personnel who have law enforcement responsibilities to some extent through this training. So it really is a great training to help officers understand how to respond to our community members. In addition to that, we bring in a speaker who talks about officers taking care of themselves. One of the things that many members of the community don't realize is actually that suicide among officers is one of the greatest risks to law enforcement at this day, in this day and age. It's not necessarily even the streets yet, and we hear about officers getting shot by people in the community all the time, but really we become victims of our own situations and the things that we've seen and that we've had to go through. So teaching officers how to reach out, help one another, and ask for help when they need that. We then also go through an entire afternoon of learning how to do de-escalation. So when somebody is really amped up and really, not in the greatest place and able to communicate, we talk to them about different skills and techniques that they can use to help bring them back down to a level where they can communicate and get through to them, and taking their time and not doing the normal type A law enforcement, we're here to solve the problem and take somebody to jail and fix things right away, which I personally was guilty of for a very long time. It was how quick can we solve a problem and get back to the streets and get to the next call. And this is maybe if we take an additional 10 or 15 minutes and hear scenario where they have to de-escalate a situation, and the hope is that they can come up with a resolution or an outcome that is successful in the sense that the person gets the services that they need, the situation is resolved, and everybody is safe, and it doesn't necessarily result in a detention or an arrest. And if it does, that person still has the integrity and the ability to have, their needs met, but their humanity addressed as well, and so that they're still treated like a person, and that their needs are met in a way that is effective and caring and empathetic as well. So overall, it is a 40-hour training. I've left out a couple things I'm certain that is included during that 40 hours. Like Lon said, he has gone through the training. I've gone through the training. I'm coordinating the training. And I know there was some concern or questions that had been brought up in previous meetings about the difference between the 40-hour training and an 8-hour training and a 2-day training. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about the differences between those trainings.
Being an old law enforcement type guy myself, we went through a program about 15, 20 years ago. It was the big thing then was called verbal judo, and it was pretty much the same. I'm presuming what you are instructing officers on how to speak with people that are a little agitated. That's pretty much the same type of program?
I would say it has some techniques of verbal judo. I'm familiar with the training that occurred with that, but it's more an understanding of the mental illness component. While there is that piece of verbal judo and an ability to just speak to people and talk to them and give them respect and time and being able to help someone process through what has upset them so much and separating them from the system, it's really also understanding that sometimes people are presenting in a way that they can't necessarily control, and you need to take that time with them to give them the space, not go hands-on with them, you have to earn their trust and let them know that you really are a police officer and not a figment of their imagination or a voice that they're hearing, or if there's a paranoia attached to that mental illness. And so it's really helping to understand an overall mental illness picture, what resources and services are there, and how to then apply everything they've learned all week in those scenarios and make it so that it's not necessarily the same outcome.
Trustees, John?
I have nothing against this training. Totally support it. Totally support it for the chief. But we spent a whole committee meeting saying we are not going to send a part-time officer. Our chief introduces it at another committee, which I find reprehensible. Reprehensible. And that's why nothing about the, you could speak for 3 hours.
No, and I completely understand that. I guess the only thing that I would challenge out of that is, what is the difference between a full-time officer and a part-time officer showing up? If anything, I would say that if anything, your part-time officers may need this training more than anybody.
We'll address that when we get to that point. And we'll give this officer the training who'll be gone in a month. Right now, I think we need to deal with full-time officers in this village and work our way through the part-time scenario. I guess you can tell I'm very unhappy with the way we looked at it from a scheduling perspective. We looked at it from a cost perspective, not of the program, of providing coverage in the village. That's what the purpose of the police department is. We're not getting it, in my opinion. Okay? And I just think it's wrong that the chief goes to another committee when that committee chair sat in on the Human Resources Committee and heard us, and we couldn't support it. And then goes, so if that's the way we're going to do this, it's going to be a long haul, chief. We're going to have a lot of issues.
And I can hear your frustrations. I'm just here to answer any of your questions that you may have in regards to, I heard there was a discussion about a 2-day training versus the 5-day training versus first aid for law enforcement. There's a number of trainings that are out there, and CIT really is the gold standard for law enforcement and the training that they should be going through in regards.
I agree with you. I believe that. I have no doubt in my mind you're correct. That's not the issue. The training is not the issue. It's the identification of who is going to the training, and in my opinion, that was determined. This is a bad move.
Yeah, go ahead. We've reached our 15 minutes, so we're back on table now. Thank you, Katie, very much. Okay, Eric?
So how many, okay, so we have one part-time cop right now, and then we have 2 full-time?
Correct. Soon to be 3 part-time.
But all the full-time are already certified in the training or whatever, so why not give it to the part-time? I guess that's my question.
You haven't gone through the training yet, have you done so all the time or not?
Monday I'll be going.
So, may I ask a question?
Objection to going off table? Go ahead.
When's the next training after December?
It isn't scheduled yet. Very likely, I've been trying to run at least 2 a year.
Okay, so there are going to be other options.
As long as I continue getting support from the local communities, because it depends on which position. I ran this from my legal services position. This time I'm actually running it from my position as a town hall police officer, because I've got the support from Adams County wanting this training as well. So it kind of rotates through that in conjunction with NAMI and the other law enforcement agencies.
So how many have they been historically having a year?
This is only going to be our third one ever. And so last year I was able to run 2 under a grant that I received. This year I was able to get grant funding, so it's very dependent on grant funding so that we can keep it free for the communities to only have to spend the money for their officers' time.
Okay, Chairman?
Where will those be held?
So this one is currently in Wisconsin Rapids. We've been alternating our sites between Wisconsin Rapids and Marshfield. Due to the participation of Portage County, it's very likely that it may go over into Stevens Point at some point for one of those rounds, depending on the need. We kind of have been moving it as needed.
Eric, in response to your point, I would say the village with a police department this size should only send one person at a time. So if that's your issue, we're sending the chief. Totally endorse that. I'm just reluctant to, we don't have the coverage. We're not getting the coverage. We don't have the coverage. This is just we need to be frugal in how we approach this from a standpoint of time.
Well, we are sending one at a time, right?
Well, we want to send 2.
Well, I thought they were going to split it up. Chief was going to go in December.
No, that's not what I'm hearing.
No, we're asking.
They're asking right now to send 2, and I'm opposed. First of all, I'm opposed to it because, again, the committee decided not to do part-time officer at this time. Maybe the next time we would, but my whole point is the committee made a decision, and now there's an end run. That's my problem, Eric.
Okay. Any other trustee with a comment? Trustee Grundon.
I would just say at this point, I've been through those kinds of trainings. I've worked with our agency for those kind of trainings. The value of it is big. I believe in that. I agree with John and the 2 officers at the same time. That's where I run into a problem. And I think we would need to decide across the board. We may have 2 other officers, part-timers. If we're going to send our part-timers, they're going to need to go too. And we do have money budgeted for the training, and we have not used all of that even yet this year. So it's not necessary. I don't see we have money set aside, and the training, the value of it, I don't call that into question. So I am going to vote no. But it's more of I don't see the 2 people going at one time as the best interest of our village.
Okay, I have not heard from Trustee Martinson. Would you wish to say something?
My thoughts are exactly the same as what Trustee Grundon just said. I feel that we made a decision in our committee meeting, and it was just going to be the full-time officers, and we said no, not any part-time officers at this time. I agree. I think everything you said, I know the program is definitely worthwhile. I certainly believe that. I understand with new things happening in the community that it's important. But again, I just feel at this time, it would be better for us financially to send Chief Iverson and have her go and not the part-timers at this time. And maybe then the part-timers could go maybe next year. Maybe all 3 of them could go at one time. Is there any reason why some of this information couldn't be passed on to a part-time officer from the people that have been training?
You're requesting permission to go off table?
I am.
Okay, this will be the last one because we're 5 minutes over our time allotted, so go ahead.
The certification for CIT specifically comes through CIT International and NAMI. So it has to be run by a NAMI board. And just for a officer who's attended it to give the information, there's nothing saying they can't say, oh, this is what happened, but it's not taught by licensed professionals. Most of us that are putting on the training do have some sort of degree or license and experience in those specific areas and expertise. expertise to the specific thing that they talk about. So for example, the veteran speaker that I bring in, he is actually a combat vet who is also a licensed professional counselor. The dementia professional that I bring in works for the Alzheimer's Association and through the ADRC. So they're very specified and specific to what they train, and they can answer a lot of those questions. So as far as passing along information, no, the actual experience themselves that they would get through the training and the scenarios, and then kind of tying it all together at the end of that, I don't know that you can really pass that along without them going through that experience themselves.
Thank you.
Okay, now it is time to gather our thoughts. We've had a motion by Chairman Mitchell and a second by Trustee Saylor to approve Officer Merkis's attendance at the 5-day CIT training in December. You've heard the motion read. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
And the motion fails 3-2. Thank you, Katie.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I would like a letter from the board of insubordination be placed in the chief's file circumventing.
No, we can't talk about that in open session. Your signal.
Okay, I will bring that up in a closed session.
Yes, sir. Okay. Finance and Human Resource Committee.
We met on November 30th, and I would like to make a motion to approve payment of the bills.
We have a motion to pay the bills for the month. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Brendan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And I would also like to make a motion at this time to approve the journal entries of the previous month.
Motion by Chairman Martinson to approve the journal entries for the previous month. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Grundon. Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
We did take some time to discuss and review the timesheets that are being used for tracking of vacation, sick pay, necessary and comp time, along with recording of hours that are worked and specific jobs that are being done. And there was no motion that came out of that. It was just a review. However, we did review and amend the village and police labor policies. And I'd like to make a motion to change the vacation policy to state that all vacation will be prorated in the year of hire, and 1 earned week will be given the following January 1st. All future vacation would follow the current vacation schedule in the labor policy, and the vacation payout upon termination or retirement by the employee would follow the new policy.
Okay, I will not repeat that. You've all heard and have in front of you the motion made by Chairman Martinson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Mitchell. Is there discussion?
What does that mean?
Guess we don't go home tonight.
I mean, just tell me what changes. Like,
What we're changing is currently when an employee is hired, an individual, if they start in, let's say, December, they would get a week of vacation January 1st of 2018. If the individual was hired in February of 2017, they have to wait until January 1st of 2018 also to get a week of vacation. So we do have a schedule put together that would enable us to do a prorate on new employees so that they're not coming in with no vacation. In other words, January 1st, 5 days, and if they come in July, it would be 2.5 days, so that they have some time for that first year that they're working.
so vacation will always be ahead of the year, not just behind the year?
An individual would be earning their vacation, and after that, an individual would be earning their vacation for the previous year for the next year.
We're going to have that meeting.
So in other words, all hours that were worked in 2017, that vacation would be awarded in 2018.
Thank you.
And the same would happen then when, if an individual were to terminate their employment or retire, and, there's different reasons why employees leave.
Yeah.
And of course, it would be up to the discretion of the board if it was an issue that, was not favorable, I guess. I mean,
So being the vacation being kind of ahead prorated, if you're terminated or retired, you don't get that, do you? Or is it?
if you retire, let's just say you retire next year, July 1st. Okay, as of January 1st, you've already earned your vacation working this past year. So January 1st, if you have 4 weeks of vacation and you retire or you terminate your employment on July 1st, you would have already worked enough to schedule 2 more weeks of vacation, which wouldn't take place until 2019. But because you're quitting, you're going to get that paid out in 2018. You're always earning your vacation.
So basically you're getting vacation for hours worked.
That's correct.
All right.
Actually, that's pretty profound.
Any other question?
Eric just hit the easy button. He just solved what took 3 hours the other night.
Is there any other discussion?
I had a meeting this afternoon with the auditor really to talk about other issues, but this issue kind of came up through that discussion. And he had just some thoughts and things that he thought we should consider in terms of how this would affect employees that we already have, and just understanding how we're transitioning from where we are to where we want to go. And then talk to our attorney about that, and I think we'd be wise to maybe give this a little bit more time to just evaluate it and make sure we fully understand what its impacts are so that something doesn't come up that we didn't think of and how that would be impacted by this. So that would be my suggestion, would be to maybe table this and bring it back next month once we have been able to really fully evaluate what this transition means and how that affects the people that we have and what that means going forward.
Comments, discussion?
The 2 main reasons why I proposed this motion was, number 1, hearing individuals that work for the village up to this point. Some have started in January, some have started in April, some have started at the end of the year. And when I look at that, I just don't think it was a very fair policy for an individual who started in November to get vacation right away in January. Only had to work here. Some of them didn't even complete their 60-day probationary period, and they were getting a week of vacation. And as we were discussing this, we also talked about moving forward and hiring new individuals. In today's world, most people want some vacation when they first start working. It used to be that individuals worked 1 year before you ever got any vacation. Now, we can certainly, anybody can say, well, that's the right way to go. But in today's world, when you're hiring employees, you've got to have an incentive for them. And I think that in all honesty, with individuals that are coming to work, I wouldn't want to start a new job and be told that I don't get a week of vacation, or at least 2 days or 3 days, something to tide me over during that year. They're going to take off without pay. There's going to be something that's going to come up. The other side of that coin is, because of the fact that it's not based on anything at all right now, just on your hire date, and they're on out, you get a week of vacation every January, not every January 1st. You get a week of vacation January 1st, but then your increase in vacation, the 2 weeks is after 3 years of vacation, of work. And I just think that it makes sense to only be in favor of the employee, and you're earning your vacation this year for next year. Under the current policy, you're earning your vacation as the year goes on. If we have an individual who leaves the village in July and they've already used their 4 weeks of vacation, for whatever reason they're leaving, the policy currently states that they have to pay the village back. I don't know how often that's happened, that anybody has had to pay the village back one time. You know, when you think about reasons why people might be leaving, if an individual is leaving the village because of an illness, do we really want to ask them to pay back 2 weeks of vacation? Second of all, if an individual is hurt on the job and they have to, be on workers' comp and it turns out to be a permanent disability and they've used their vacation in order to get through the situation that is at hand, do we want to tell them, oh, yeah, you're no longer working here, but we also, by the way, you have to pay us back that 3 weeks of vacation? Yes,
If I can ask, President.
The chair recognizes Chairman Mitchell.
Thank you. I guess I would like to have a little bit more time also to look at the ramifications of the transition from what has been practiced to the new policy, and also to look at the economic impact as well of people who may be retiring soon or have retired. Well, no, we don't care about that, but anyway, who would be retiring under the new policy too. I guess it was a long discussion the other night, and we went through a lot. And I guess I need to digest now what we sort of decided and look at the impact that it has on employees or future employees.
Trustee Bingham.
I, like Sue, sat in that meeting, so I'm part and parcel of that discussion, so I cannot say that I wasn't there, but I do feel similar. I'm sorry. I felt uncomfortable leaving that meeting, and I thought, well, I'm in a minority because I'm probably the only one that doesn't get it. So, but now hearing if Sue doesn't get it, and she's a whole lot smarter than me, I know, Luann, you put a lot of time into this, looking at this from other policies, but I too would agree with Scott, or with our administrator, and I'd like to feel more comfortable, and not to take advantage of any employee or anything at all. That's not my intent. My intent is to, I don't know if clarifies the word, but maybe understand better. So that's kind of where I'm at too on that particular motion.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Who's our second, Madam Clerk?
Trustee Mitchell.
Okay. On the table, so if people are requesting, the chair has to instruct you, correct me if I'm wrong, Counselor, that we have to have a motion to lay on the table if you want to have time to discuss. And it could happen any time during the session, and the session, of course, is each year the village board meets. So I would need a motion to lay on the table if that's your wish. Otherwise, we just vote yea or nay on the current motion to approve.
Okay.
Nothing
Now I get
explained.
to debate.
And then if a motion to lay on the table is made and we receive a second, then we vote on that. There's no discussion on a lay on the table motion. It's just a regular vote right away. If that fails, then we're back to the motion to approve. If the motion to lay on the table passes, then the discussion's over until such time as we bring it back. Do you understand, everybody? Very much. How'd I do in there? Good. Thank you, sir. I should get attorney hours. So, are you making that motion, madam?
Yes, I would move to table.
No, I got it. Ken, she seconded the motion to approve.
Is that legal?
That one goes by me.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, I have a motion by Trustee Mitchell to table the vacation policy that we've talked.
My other question is then we're obviously.
We can't discuss it until we have a motion in a second. So you've made the motion, ma'am. Trustee Mitchell has made a motion to table the proposal. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Second by Trustee Bingham. And as I said, there's no discussion. Right. So I will, all those in favor of laying this proposal on the table till a future date will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
I already said the first one.
You voted for no?
I voted for laying on the table.
Okay. All right. That motion passes 3-2. So, Madam Chair, it will be up to you when to have further discussion. And your next committee meeting is January 2nd. However, on the, I think that would give us sufficient time to have a discussion.
Yeah, I think we need a lot of time.
And in fact, since it's dealing with pay, it's allowed to go into a close, isn't it? Compensation?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so I would encourage all of you to use the meeting. You probably don't know, but we're having a committee of the whole closed session on labor issues anyway, coming up on the 13th. So I will entrust the administrator to get that on the agenda.
December 13th.
I'll try, because I wanted to particularly have the chairman with the auditor and with the attorney, and I don't know if I can get that.
Could you call John on your convenience?
Yes, I can.
And if you could go directly and just CC me so I know what's going on, I'd appreciate it.
Sure.
Okay. Number 5.
Can I move forward? I would like to make a motion to approve the change presented in the policy for unused sick leave used to cover health insurance premiums for continuation or conversion to an individual plan for retirees. We currently have a plan, and we are amending that plan.
I second that for discussion. She made a motion.
Yes, I did.
Motion by Chairman Martinson, second by Trustee Saylor. I'm losing it tonight. Okay. Any discussion on that matter?
So that sick leave stuff is in the labor policy, right?
Yes, it is.
Currently, it's 85%, which I had when I retired, but it's based on age, and if somebody retires early, but they put in 30 years, they get 0. So basically, this thing will be any of our current employees, when they retire, if this is approved, will have the choice of going by the age or years of service. When our new employees...
Whichever is greater.
Pardon?
Whichever is greater.
I was getting to that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Any new employees hired after 1/1/18 will only be able to go under the years of service policy, which will be the one you're voting on, the new one. And current employees will have whatever is to their advantage by going by age or years of service. So the biggest change is its structure it's pretty much 15 years to qualify, because it should be a reward the committee pretty well felt for those, putting time in with the village. And then it goes up to anybody with 40 plus years of service would get the 100% payout. Did you have that?
I do have.
Yeah.
You saw it where you were there when we talked about it? Okay. Is there any discussion on that motion? You ready, Eric? No, you're not. We wait.
So I mean, what's changing? It goes up 5%? I mean, from what you had, you would have had...
It's age.
Right. I had 37 years, so I would have been at 85% like it was, or 90, or whatever the new schedule says. What do you really do? May I use you, Chief, as an example?
Because the ages were different.
We have an employee that's going to retire that would have 30 years of service plus, but due to his age, and he's able to retire at his age, he would get 0. And it's just kind of like, doesn't sit well. I think they should have something for all the years of service.
No, I understand that. But wasn't, because I think with past administrator, wasn't this already discussed and, or it's being changed since then? Wasn't it last year something, people asked for sick leave?
That had to do with when I retired. That's when it was really kicked around, but nothing has changed. It's been like that since I can remember.
So this is the new one or the old?
That's the old one, this is the new one. I apologize, I didn't bring any more copies.
I emailed them to you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the new sick leave payout for, it might add insurance premiums only. In other words, they can't take the wad out and put it in a medical savings account or anything like that. It's just, to buy health insurance premium. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay, that motion carries 4-0. Trustee Saylor abstains. Okay, Madam Chair.
A motion to increase the special voting deputies' pay to $25 per visit.
Motion to approve the increase in pay for special voting deputies to $25 per visit. Do I have a second? Second by Trustee Bingham. You guys delayed. He took the... I would like, anybody that doesn't understand, Madam Clerk, could you just give a brief thing of what the special people do?
Okay, they go to Edgewater during voting to bring the ballots to the residents there, and they help them to vote, bring them back to me. We currently pay them $10 per visit, which, I don't think 25 would be asking too much, so that's what it's for.
Okay, question? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
And I'd like to make a motion to prohibit smoking and the use of all tobacco products on all village-owned property, including vehicles, by all employees during working hours.
Have a motion to institute the tobacco policy as read, second by Trustee Bingham. Discussion. Hearing no request. Before we vote, any department heads wish to weigh in on this matter? No?
Just,
Go ahead.
this would, while you're working, this would cover lunch and breaks also, correct? If you're working.
If they work through if it's a paid lunch or break, yes, but if they're not being paid for their lunch
But if they're
or break.
if they're in a vehicle of ours.
Yes.
Or if they're on village property.
Right.
Okay.
But if they take their lunch, go to a restaurant,
Okay.
and they want to stand around and smoke or whatever, that's perfectly acceptable.
Okay, thank you.
Alrighty, we've had a motion and a second. All those in favor of the tobacco policy will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries.
And we had a brief presentation from Scott Harrington regarding DMI, and as a result of that, I'd like to make a motion to credit DMI for sewer charges on utility bills as the leaks appear to be fixed for a total due in the amount of $21,877.66. And I think everybody received the information regarding the conversation, and...
Is there a second? Second by Trustee Grundon. Discussion. Mr. Harrington, I would like you to give a little background.
Eric had a
Well,
question.
he can get back.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He can get back on first. I mean, my question is, looking back at old minutes and stuff like that, this has been going on since 2015 or before that, even, I don't know. but there was always contingencies on reimbursing them that sewer, and have those been met, I guess, is my question. The property tax, and I mean, it is now because of the sale, everything's in escrow now, but that, it wasn't before the sale, and it's been over 2 or 3 years, and then now that they have the money, they want a break. But this break is only for, it was this year? Or last year?
Last year, primarily.
17?
Actually, it's this year, but mostly from the earlier part of the year. To answer your question, when the board last voted on this, there was a condition, 2 conditions. One, that they pay their personal property taxes, and the other is that they fix the leak. They did pay their personal property taxes at that time and became fully current with them. They started down the road to fix the leak. Took some measures to do that. There was one of their billing periods did see a pretty significant drop in use, but then it popped right back up. And at that point, they had a sense of where they thought the leak was. And right about that same time, relationships between DMI personnel and village personnel really started to deteriorate. And shortly after that, DMI finished the demo that they could complete themselves, and they left the site and the water was turned off. Since the sale, they have taken additional steps with our help, with the village's help, to repair what is believed to be the primary source of the leak. Until the system is really cranked up again, we won't know, but it was in the location generally where they thought it was. It ended up being not a crack in the pipe, but a bad hydrant. And so as best as anybody knows at this point, the primary leak is fixed. So that contingency has been met. So it is just on the 1 meter. This would bring them current on, there's like 9 different meters that serve the property, and they haven't paid a bill in a year. So this would address all that and give the credit to the 1 meter on the sewer part. So they're still paying for all the water that went wherever. The real credit is to the sewer bill, because if water went into the ground, it never made it to the sewer system. And the credit of changing to a flat fee of $500 is consistent with what the village has done in the past with this issue. So at this point, it does appear that they've met the conditions, and all these funds are available in escrow to be drawn from.
So I'm fine with that now, but moving forward, we've had these discussions for 3 years, all sorts of residents, I'm not talking business, whatever. If we have a resident that comes to town, they want that's fine, we'll do it once, even though we talked about curbing away from that, but what's gonna happen if it happens again? What's the plan for the future?
I would like to bring Chief Weiser in, because he did a lot of the work in his capacity as a water.
Eric, to answer that question, is it won't happen with DMI again, because we help them, assist them get a water line to the river water line, so they're functioning without our water at all now.
So they're 100% on their own?
Yep, they're not using village water for any of their sprinklers.
And the warehousing and the new...
It's all being fed by river water.
Oh, that's all river water?
Just their potable, their bathrooms, they have their own meters for their own bathrooms now, that's a separate company. So that's all, yeah, DMI has nothing to do with warehouse as far as their water goes.
Okay, but they're not on the same lines or nothing?
And DMI has no water meters that are active right now, just 2 in the warehouse that are by K&K Logistics.
I guess to answer your question, given the age of the system and the fact that it really hasn't operated in a while, there's no guarantees that when they do turn the water back up to the mill that there aren't going to be some leaks. But the primary leak, everybody believes that it's been fixed. If their meter starts spinning uncontrollably, it would be expected at that time that they will take the steps necessary to fix it, and we won't have to come back and deal with credits again. So, this should resolve that issue, from here going forward. That they're on, because when they bought the place, this leak was already there. So now the leak is presumed to be fixed, and we shouldn't have to do this again, and I'm not anticipating that we will.
Any further discussion?
Where does the software come into play that catches the leaks? Is that for them over there also?
Well, it doesn't even go in a place that runs 24 hours a day. And like the Urco, they never shut off. So they're on my leak detection every day. So it only works in places that would go to bed at night. So if they're a place that's running water, but even if they start with all the rest of their sprinkling systems, they're not going to be on any village water. Their water meters from now on will not be helping their sprinkling system at all. So it doesn't matter what DMI ever starts up again now going forward, it's going to be on their own water system, not on ours at all.
Even their indoor water?
No, just all their fire protection. All their fire protection. That's where all their leaks are at. So their actual potable water, we shouldn't have any problems going forward from this day on, you know, so.
Yeah, so this meter pretty much exclusively served the fire suppression system.
This meter, the water meter we're talking in discussion, all it did was boost the fire protection system with a booster pump. We now put a line in for them off the river water line to the booster pump, which they should have done years ago, so they don't have to worry about any village water.
Right. And so they have additional connections for bathrooms.
Right, that's it, yes.
Right. So
Our productions, if they, whatever goes in.
Any further discussion? So Chairman Martinson made the motion and Trustee Grundon seconded the motion. All those in favor of the credit for EMI sewer charges on utility bills will signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries.
And I'd like to make a motion to approve that all employees be paid bi-weekly effective January 1st of 2018.
Second.
Motion by Chairman Martinson to approve that all employees be paid bi-weekly effective January 1, 2018. Second by Trustee Bingham. Discussion.
So the conversation in this regard related to direct deposit, but then it seemed like there was conversation that related to direct deposit might not be cost feasible for our village. So is it really still necessary?
Well, the direct deposit came up from an individual, an employee, but the initial conversation was changing the payroll so that everybody would be paid at the same time. Currently, some of the individuals are paid on the 1st and the 15th of the month.
15th and the last.
Or excuse me, the 15th and the last day of the month. All other employees are being paid bi-weekly.
So is it going to be easier
So it
for
would be
bookkeeping?
easier for bookkeeping for Diane to actually pay everybody bi-weekly, 26 pay days per year, and not have 2 payrolls that she has to keep track of.
When I was working, my check would be written out the same day, but sit in the vault until the 15th or the last day of the month. It will be a lot easier.
And also, with that being said, an individual's check should really be given to them with the date that is on it. And I think we definitely want to change that. But the individual that brought up direct deposit, that was just a request, and it is not cost effective for us to do direct deposit at this time. You're charged per check, you're charged per transaction, and it could be very costly for such a small group of individuals.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
And lastly, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the committee.
Second.
Motion to approve the minutes, second by Chairman Martinson, second by Trustee Mitchell. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. And remember, next month we'll still go through the minutes and pick up our motions and any other reports. But the board shouldn't be in the business of approving committee minutes. You will approve your minutes the next time you meet. So if you have a meeting in January, when your committee gets together in February, you will approve your minutes. Okay? Very good. Unfinished business from previous meetings. please?
Streets.
Out and airport.
Oh, gosh. Well, it's your fault, Chairman Bingham, because I'm an old timer and I like everything set my way. Go ahead, sir, I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, as Eric pointed out, he produced some excellent minutes, and we would be remiss not to have those read into the minutes tonight. The Streets, Infrastructure, Recreation, and Cemetery Committee met at 5 o'clock on November 21st in the municipal building. We had a lot of discussion on a variety of items. I'll quickly summarize in the interest of time. One of the major items, we had a discussion with Joe Terry regarding the continuing saga on Port Road, and he gave us a significant history of that event. But going forward, we're looking at how we can resolve it rather than the history, which is important. But I want to credit Administrator Scott Harrington for getting some action taken out there. It was noted by several residents that cameras were out there a couple days. Administrator Harrington informed me tonight they've discovered some root blockage and will attempt to relieve that in the very, very near future, weather permitting. 20 degrees is not good for it, but action is happening, and I'm very pleased to hear that. Administrator Harrington is in the process of communicating with Joe Terry in regard to that. So I'm very pleased with what is happening there to resolve that issue that's been around forever. The splash pad and make recommendation to the board, several good pieces of discussion, whether we go to Ripple Creek, YMCA, what we should do, what are the costs. Again, Administrator Harrington has provided information, and we looked at that. Still looking at some additional what-ifs, cost, and the result of that discussion was a desire to have a town hall type meeting. And I guess right now I'm a little, I'm open. I'm not sure how we're going to communicate that. This month seems to be a no for sure because of just everything that's going on and with the holidays. I would probably sit down with Administrator Harrington and whoever else is interested and figure out how we can get the word out and where we want to have it and that type of thing, but do it as soon as possible. We would talk generally about should we receive input from the public. We really wouldn't have a position. We receive input from the public and see where they're at. I would hope it would be well attended. Trustee Duncan even suggested we do it at the high school. I would hope that would be a problem, that we would have a space problem and have to do it at a larger venue. So that's to be determined, but that was a good discussion. Again, we're continuing to discuss it, but I want to feel fiscally responsible in regard to that. I have, and we'll see what happens going forward. Director of Public Works updates. Steve and Jeanette Jeske are interested in leasing some property behind the cemetery. I don't think the people out there would mind for hay or soybeans to feed the animals. It's done other places. It sounded, I kind of went, really? I'd never heard of it, but I guess we've asked Scott, to come up with a probability cost and fee structure. President Zerflu informed us that the airport does something similar, and I didn't realize that. I just saw a piece on TV before the news before I came where somebody's doing legally in Wisconsin now hemp plants. So that could be a booming industry, but not advocating that for the cemetery. There is a resident living in a rental that has the water, and I don't know how this one has come out. Water shut off, has not had their water put on. There is an ordinance, you have to have water within so many days. Loreline Fearer has drafted a letter. Diane, has that gone out?
I don't know.
Okay, she would
Didn't
have.
go through us with it.
Okay, so we're on a.
Yeah, she shared a draft with us. I'm sure it went out.
Okay, and we haven't heard or.
I have not heard.
And the next step would be cite a violation going to the police department or an eviction notice.
She doesn't comply.
Yeah, probably.
Mr. Leiser, water superintendent, has a.
In the past, we red tag the house.
First.
Right.
Okay. So I'm not sure, you're not aware of
I
anything?
don't know.
Okay.
He's doing the past red tag house.
Okay,
And the letter went to the actual owner. of the
That's right.
house,
That's right.
Because ultimately, the owner is responsible
Right.
for the water's in the renter's name. The owner, would get a lien. Hopefully, it was enough to get their attention, but I don't know. I haven't heard anything.
okay, all right. Yeah, I mean, it's an ordinance, and you should have running water in your residence.
Yes.
It's pretty simple. We had a kind of an emergency situation where we needed to implement a fix to well number 4 and get it back up and running in the budget for the stainless replacement in the future. Any update on that?
Yes, we Scott discussed it, we were going to go with the regular pump again this time.
Yeah.
I think it was a faulty casting on the last one, so we're going to install the same one that was there. They're going to come tomorrow and start installing it. Should be done by the end of the week and back
Do
online.
we have a cost on that?
I think it was like 6,500, Scott?
Yeah, that's what we.
Additional.
Yeah.
Because we said not to exceed 12.
Well, we didn't know the pump was going to be.
Right, no, but we wanted to make sure we covered it.
We
so-
should save some money too, because they don't have to clean the old pump and service the old pump.
Okay.
So we should save some money in the 12,000 towards the price of the new pump.
Okay, so yeah, that's the good news. I could be under, that's a good thing. In regard to, there's going to be some properties around well number 5 that Dave Rinke is going to select and harvest some trees, and that's a normal process that occurs. He has informed us of that taking place. Received no correspondence. Agenda items for the next meeting. Hopefully we can even have some idea going to the next meeting for the splash pad public town hall meeting. Also, I've received a request, received a request from Mr. Detlefsen about the hydrant, Eric, in front of his house. He won't be on the agenda. It'll be under public comments next time. I will say publicly that we've addressed that twice. At this point, that's all I have to say. The next meeting will be for the CERC committee on December 19th at 5 o'clock at the municipal building. Ask for approval of the minutes of the CERC committee of November 21st.
Motion by Chairman Bingham to approve the minutes of CERC meeting. Do I have a second? Second by Trustee Saylor. Discussion?
I'd love to take credit for the Port Road thing. I was, if anything, had more of an intermediary.
Well, if it fails, we want your name on it.
I don't know, but
Does this have anything to do-
Dowell and the crew followed up and
Scott?
yes.
This doesn't have anything to do about the motion to approve the minutes, so we'll go right back to you.
Okay.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? You're on.
All right, the Public Works crew did a great job following up from your meeting, and I helped facilitate maybe some communication, but they really did the work, so that's all I wanted to clarify.
And I probably overstated it. I know Dell and the crew did a great job, but it does indicate the value of communication in getting something done.
Absolutely.
So, I'm done.
You know, a suggestion for your town hall, instead of looking for a new date, maybe your January CERC meeting, if we can get the word out there, we could just have that as part of the CERC meeting.
Yeah, you got any ideas on how to get it out? I don't. We talked about it. Yeah, we talked about it briefly.
I know a lot of people are with the paper online or in print, it's especially with the aquatic center up in Rapids going on, there's people paying a lot of attention to all things aquatics nowadays, so that might work too. And radio spots, they're pretty good at, and Scotts Rapids Community Media puts blurbs on for you also. True. Okay, unfinished business now. New business.
Yes, I'm finished.
Mr. President, did the Airport Commission discuss?
The who?
The Airport Commission?
Oh, Airport Commission. Sorry. Why am I ignoring you tonight, Chairman Martin?
That's fine, no problem. There are no minutes. And their next meeting is December 7th, which is this Thursday, so there are no minutes to approve.
I know the plans for expansion and some of the programs that are already approved and ongoing, they're ongoing, so, and Sand Valley has been at the last couple of their meetings also, so things move over there. Clerk Treasurer.
And I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the 2018 water utility budget as presented.
Motion to approve the 2018 water utility budget by trustee Bingham.
Second?
Second by trustee Grundon. Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries.
And I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the 2018 wastewater utility budget as presented.
To approve the 2018 wastewater utility budget as presented. Motion by trustee Mitchell.
Second.
Second by trustee Bingham. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the 2018 village budget and set the tax levy that was recommended at the public hearing.
Approve the 2018 village budget and set tax levy as recommended at the public hearing. Motion
Motion.
by trustee Grundon. Second.
Second?
Second by trustee Martinson. Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries, and I would like to say good job to all involved in that. Okay.
Okay, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve resolution 2017-3, amending the 2017 adopted budget of the village of Port Edward.
The chair is looking for a motion to approve the resolution 27-3, amending 2017 budget, adopted budget of the village of Port Edwards. Moved by Grundon, second by Mitchell. Discussion. All those in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'd like to ask for a motion to approve resolution 2017-4, repealing and replacing the official fee schedule of the village of Port Edward sewer utility, increasing the wastewater rates 10% as approved at the September 12th 2017 board meeting.
Looking for a motion to approve Resolution 2017-4, repealing and replacing the official fee schedule as read by the clerk. Looking for a motion. Motion by trustee Mitchell.
Second?
Second by trustee Grundon. Discussion.
So it is going to be 10%?
What do you want for name?
So it was up to 10%. We were trying to make sure it was going to be lower than 10%.
Well, I think when it was up to 10%, looking at what is the need, and I think the need was determined to be at the 10% level, if I'm correct on that.
What was the increase last couple of years? It's been done?
It has been done. We kept falling further and further behind, and that was the problem.
In my understanding, this is not going to really let us catch up as much as not falling further behind.
Correct.
Any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
I'd like to ask for a motion to authorize the clerk to pay all routine bills that come in through December.
Standard motion to give the clerk permission to pay all bills.
Or second, sorry.
Trustee Martinson, second by trustee Bingham. Discussion. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Boy, don't even listen to you tonight.
I'd ask for a motion to adopt the revised village and police labor policies for 2018.
Motion to adopt the revised village and police labor policies for 2018. Motion? We can't talk about it until we get a motion and a second. Motion by trustee Saylor to adopt the revised village and police labor policies for 2018. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by trustee Martinson. Discussion.
because we're talking about tabling previously, does that apply here, or what are we doing?
Well,
We
there's-
did not look at the police policy.
That's what I was wondering, revised, what are we revising?
We haven't, I mean, as far as I know anyway, that hasn't.
Nothing came.
Wages are revised and the premiums.
Move the second, please.
Oh, that was out in the
The
email.
insurance premium and stuff. I looked at both labor policies and they were the exact same, all the verbiage was the exact same.
So it's a matter of cost.
Okay. Correct.
Right, I mean, just,
But the question I have is, like, the changes that are made to the regular labor policy, does that reflect to the police labor policy, or are those two separate deals? You know, as far
Anything
as-
to do with wages and stuff like that, the percentage?
No, like what we talked about before with the sick time and
Vacation.
That's
vacation,
village-wide.
that's village-wide, then the police has their own special.
Nope.
No, it's all under.
See, this is, I think,
You have
eventually,
two labor policies, not to interrupt you or nothing, but one says police labor policy and one says general labor policy.
and we should have one labor policy for the village of Port Edwards, and what pertains to public safety should be so noted in the one policy. That way, when we talk about the sick leave used for health insurance premiums, it's a no-brainer, it's for everybody. But it's been confusion for a few years. Something that maybe FHR can, or PIT can work on for next year.
Pit or bitch.
And yes, we can approve this because we're approving the other things in it. And when the vacation thing is, correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, is finalized, that we'll approve that. And so that'll become part of the policy.
So we're approving them as they are read presently, that it says 2018.
Correct. And we have official notice in the minutes that the vacation thing is not part of that. That has been tabled. Any other discussion? All those in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
And I'd also like to ask for a motion to approve an operator's license for Elaine Koshanek, working at the Port Edwards Boutique and Craft Mall, I guess apparently known as the Bourbon Barrel Boutique, through June 30th, 2018.
Looking for a motion to approve operator's license for Elaine Koshanek, Port Edwards Boutique and Craft Mall, Bourbon Barrel Boutique, through June 30th, 2018. A motion.
So moved.
Second. Motion by trustee Mitchell, second by trustee Grundon. Any discussion? Is this about the long name or no?
Well, yes, is this that whole strip area that is all
That's all one business,
all one business?
So why is it, I'm sorry.
And so I thought right now it was divided, so now it's going to be just one
Under the one address, they have a liquor license under one address.
under one address. So
It's
does that
just to
mean?
be just to be able to sell it. This is an operator's license, just for her to be able to sell it. Liquor, they already have a liquor license there.
Okay, so they already have a liquor license, but does that mean that they can take liquor from one building to the other? Is that permitted?
The liquor license is just permitting them to sell in containers, beer and liquor.
At any one of those
No,
locations?
just the bar address, just the address that they have on the application.
Oh, I see, okay, I understand, okay, thank you.
Trustee Grundon.
Who is this person? That's not the owner of the business, is it?
No, but she's just going to be serving,
Working there,
Oh, so serving, but it's,
not serving, selling.
selling.
okay.
Well,
Just like at the gas station, we do that every year,
Oh,
or at
okay,
Austin's,
got
we
it.
do it every year. Fire department, but it is pending background investigation, right?
The police department already did that. There was nothing that would prohibit her from getting it.
any other discussion? All those in favor will signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, I'd also like to ask for a motion to appoint Doris Schwantes, Karen Thiel, Julie Allward, and Joan Chessie, and Barbara Krieger as the primary election workers. Charlotte Jacob and Kathy McGrath as the special voting deputies for Edgewater, and Kathy Dimka, Bonnie Derazinski, Jan Dykstra, Kathy McGrath, Nina Pilo, Jeanette Santoski, Becky Taylor, and Carol Zerflu as substitute workers for the 2018-2019 elections.
Okay, we have a motion to, as read, approve the primary election workers, special voting deputies for Edgewater Haven, and substitute workers for the 2018-2019 elections. Motion.
So moved.
By trustee Mitchell, second?
Second.
Second by trustee Grundon. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Committee dates, there's extra copies here, so you don't have to write them down, okay? Then we'll need some over here. So I'll just, for the audience and community media, tomorrow night, December 5th, 2017, Public Safety will meet at 5 o'clock in Municipal Building. Wednesday, December 13th, there will be a committee of the whole closed session to deal with the labor issues. And Mr. Apps, I would like you, if you could get back to me on which one I should list that under for evaluations and the closed session.
Yes.
And for the other thing I mentioned tonight, monetary.
Yeah, I'll check to see if there's a change. I sent an email to the clerk about it, but they're, in light of tonight's discussion, I'll review it again with your permission.
To what?
I'll review it again in light of tonight's discussion to see if it,
Correct.
I had sent an email about the wording for that particular meeting, but since the notice has been posted yet, if we need to change it, there's still time, so.
You may do so and then just keep me advised because I will not be there that night for the committee of the whole. And I will get back to that before we leave. Tuesday, December 19th, the Plan Commission will meet at 3:30 p.m. in the Municipal Building. Also on Tuesday, December 19th, the Planning, Property, and Information Technology Committee will meet at 4 p.m. Tuesday, December 19th, the CERT Committee will meet at 5 p.m., all in the Municipal Building. And that'll be it for 2017. Then on Tuesday, January 2nd, 2018, Finance and Human Resources, 5 p.m. in the Municipal Building. And then Tuesday, January 9th, 2018, we'll have the Village Board meeting at 7 p.m. here at Edwards Alexander Shelter.
Move to adjourn.
Going back to Tuesday, December 13th, Committee of the Whole, as by ordinance, the village president may appoint special committees, which this is not, but he also appoints all chairmen for that committee. So, Eric, I would like to ask you if you could chair the Committee of the Whole meeting. Sure. Okay, thank you. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by trustee Bingham, seconded by trustee Grundon. All those in favor?
Aye.
We stand adjourned.